Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Accuracy in America, brought to you by Accuracy in Academia. I am your co-host, Don Irvine, joined by I said co-host, I saw my host, Don Irvine, joined by my co-host, Brian McNichol.
Hello, deplorables, dregs, despicables, chumps, Neanderthals, semi-fascists, maggots, and of course those dog-faced pony soldiers.
All right. So anybody who joins us at any point in time, this has been a little bit of a delay. Brian had a few technical issues on his end, and for whatever reason, neither one of us thought the first remedy should be reboot the computer.
Yeah, once we did it,
yeah, that was fine.
Plug it back in.
Yeah, so we could have been on the air about almost half an hour ago.
That's right.
Yeah, I have no idea if we lost our entire viewership as a result of that. They wait with bated breath till that 11 o'clock hour or whatever. So anyway, whatever it may be. Oh, it looks like you got a haircut too.
I did.
Is that kind of for the summer cut?
That's my summer cut. I do that every year.
Right.
Just cut it off, not worry about it, not have to comb it, not have it dragging all over me. My hair was so long before, so I went to get the haircut, and the guy kind of laid me back in the barber chair. So he cuts off all the top, right? And then there's still stuff like long flowing locks. I looked like George Washington back there with the little pigtails and stuff.
Yeah, my son, he likes to keep his hair short. I think lets it grow out a little bit during the year, but he tends to keep it on the short end. Maybe not quite as short as you, but I think for him it works. I mean, part of it too is that not everybody looks okay when they do that, right? So it's
right,
and you look fine. I mean, it works for you, but it doesn't necessarily work for everybody. So
right, that's right.
Yeah. So it's kind of a case by case basis with a lot of these things. So I did want to follow up though. It was like from last week we were talking about the weather. And you were going to have a practice outside or something or other, right?
Yeah.
Because of the holiday and the election and all of this kind of stuff. It went forward. It worked out okay.
It did. We went out there till 9:30, 9:45. It actually, once the sun went down, it was a fairly nice night, and the bugs laid off for some reason. So we got a lot of work done. It worked out well.
When we did that. When we did, I think I said this last week, when we did that trip, my wife and I did that 2-day, 1,100-mile road trip and whatever, what that woman told us is like, take a bounce dryer sheet and wear that, and it keeps the gnats away. I meant to do that this week because, I went outside the other day. It was about 5 o'clock, and I'm like, there's a little bit of a breeze. It's actually in the 80s. It's getting shady. I'm going to cut the grass because I'm like, I don't know where my windows of time are. I don't want to cut the grass when it's 90, 95 and, hot and sunny. Yeah. So I went and did that, but I forgot to wear the dryer. The bugs weren't as bad anyway, but, it's something I was like, I need to make a little list of I have to make sure this is part of my prep list for this because I do want to try that out at some point in time. But the weather's been kind of, it's kind of crazy. I think we're expecting some thunderstorms potentially today, which we would need.
I think that's part of the deal with why we don't see as many bugs is it's been very, very dry.
Yeah. But in other parts of the country have been just, hit hard with other kinds of weather, flooding and other kinds of issues. Once again, reinforcing to me as to why I stay where I am, much to the consternation.
Yeah, I was thinking about that the other day. We were talking about, where would you like to move, having that conversation. And it's like, we're not, like my friends in Houston, they're talking about being, days without power. We don't really have that here. Like we have every once in a while, but for the most part, and especially here in Reston, where all the cables are buried, there's very little of that, right? You get to live your life on a fairly regular basis. You don't have to worry about stuff like that. So, when you think about leaving, you think about going someplace where they don't have the infrastructure nailed down as well yet. It's you take on some risk of some real interruption to your life.
Yeah, I guess it's natural for us Americans. I don't know if it happens as much in other parts of the world, okay, but it seems that it definitely happens here. Is that there is this kind of expectation? It's like, oh, when you get to be retirement age, where are you going to move to? It's like basically you retire from your job and then you will move, not that you retire from your job and that you will stay put, because.
Right.
And we do have a lot of that, right? People in New York will move to Florida or things like that, or other people, people in California have moved to Texas and other parts of the country and things like that to get away from high taxes and regulation and things like that. But we had all that. We had a lot of movement, during the pandemic. Because of the pandemic, it just the remote work, created a whole different kind of opportunity. Where corporations basically had to, in order to fill slots and keep people, they had to grant remote work, and people moved thousands of miles away. But now we're back to a situation where, or at least in a situation where, it's hard to move. And I've said this time and time again. I talk with a lot of people that are in my age range and older, and maybe some of our viewers, have had the same issue, is that, when you're getting to be in your 60s and 70s, you've built up equity in your home or whatever. If you've paid it off, what are you going to do? Where are you going to go? How much do you sell your home for? And what do you get for that? What are you going to buy elsewhere that will meet your needs? And that has been, and if you have enough money to basically buy a house more or less outright and have no mortgage or a little mortgage, then you might be okay. But when mortgage rates are 7% ish, it creates yet another hurdle, because you're like, okay, I'm in a home where I've got either no mortgage or 3% mortgage or 4% mortgage. I cannot afford to go elsewhere. This is which is happening to a lot of people, right? I mean, I've been like, my house is paid off, and so I'm okay. I could move, but I'm like, it doesn't make any sense to me yet. I'm waiting for my wife to give me that real reason as to how this would work, except for the fact that it's like, I'm going, and if I'm going to go and you can stay or something.
Right. That's right. Yeah. I mean, it's like, a lot of what's going on in the economy now, is blocking mobility. The left is threatened by mobility. They don't want people to move. They don't want people to change their situation, right? Because their whole thing is, your situation's bad and we will help, so you need us. So, so like minimum wage, that blocks mobility. Okay. If you work at McDonald's and you make $7.20 an hour, at some point you're going to meet somebody who inspires you or whatever, and you want to have a family, and that's got to be more than $7.20 an hour. So then there's mobility. You got to train for a skill, and you've developed a skill. You worked at McDonald's, you now know how to have a job, and how to work in a restaurant, which I don't know how to do that. I've never done that. So there's a training that goes there, and you're a more valuable person to the next employer because you've worked for McDonald's. Okay, but now, so they said, okay, we're going to make McDonald's $20 an hour. Okay, so those people don't leave. So nobody gets to come in and get that experience. And you have, 15 or 20 year people at $15 or $20 an hour. They never get rich, right? They're a drag on the economy. And, they don't have any money to spend. They don't have any money to invest. They don't have any money to start businesses or anything. They're stuck on that wheel. You have, by, raising minimum wage, you have stopped the wheel from turning. So, it's the way they think about everything. And it's like, it's short-sighted and it's selfish, which is, how they came to these conclusions. And, there's nothing you can do about it. It's like, you just win it politically.
Yeah, I don't really have that much of a problem if you're going to raise the minimum wage more or less to keep up with kind of inflation type of thing like that, right? So that doesn't bother, that part wouldn't really bother me as much. It's these huge jumps, just like you mentioned, that just change the whole dynamic, because these fast food jobs, a lot of these kind of service jobs, they were meant, as training jobs, right? These were training grounds.
They're supposed to churn. McDonald's corporate plan says turnover will be 400% per year. Every year, their average is hiring 4 people for every position, right? That's what they want. They know how to do that. right? And they can bring in people with no experience because, you know, the good ones will stay till they find something better, and the bad ones you can just get rid of, right? Because there's not a lot of, they don't have a lot of money in it, right? But they have, you know, you're training people, you're making people upwardly mobile.
Yeah. So the model really is that we expect you to move on, right? That you will find a better paying job or do something else, that you will learn a skill or whatever and become more valuable to employer B after you've been with employer A, and so on and so forth, and go that. But as you know, like you said, you know, when you are forcing people, especially in California, when you're forcing these restaurants to pay $20 an hour as a minimum wage, you've locked them in. Now all of a sudden, those people who've been there making $7 to $9, $10 an hour, whatever, though, you know, thanks to Biden inflation, those wages have been growing up dramatically, right? They were not the lower paying minimum wage jobs. They've been shooting up. You know, you and I have both seen, we go to a grocery store or whatever, you know, and what was a $12 an hour job at Aldi's just a few years ago is now an $18 an hour job at Aldi's. And it's like, that's a huge expense. You know, they don't just absorb that and say everything's bright and cheery. Things have to happen, and those employees will stick around a lot longer for that, and so their prices are going to go up. You know, I'm sure you've seen all the stories about how the fast food industry has now been competing with each other on like $5 value meals, right? McDonald's is doing it for a month. They just started on Tuesday, and you know, and Wendy's has had their $5 biggie meal for years, it seems, and Burger King's going to do something, and so you know they're all jumping in there with that, and that's going to be a low profit to no profit thing for the franchises to deal with, but it's a kind of a knee-jerk reaction to, you know, these wild stories about the $18 Big Mac and stuff like that. Well, you know, these stories are also very regional. You have to look at the cost structure in a certain place, and they're going to be different. You and I both know, having traveled around the country, that you're not going to pay the same price for a burger here as a burger in Texas or a burger in Kansas or a burger in California. You know, the cost of living, they all make a difference, right? So yeah, if you don't move those employees and have them turn over, particularly when the wages were lower, then you have to change your model of how you do things, and menu prices will increase, which then have that other deleterious effect for the restaurants. It's like then their customer count drops. People don't come in to eat that, you know, and that you know, businesses start to close, and we've definitely seen, you know, because
restaurants close.
A lot of restaurants close. I mean, I'm not going to say that everything that's happened has been Biden's fault directly.
Right. There's something is like the chain restaurant model is under a lot of stress right now. Right. So a lot of them are in, you know, Red Lobster has gone down or very close to going down. Pizza Hut, you know, which is, you know, involves Taco Bell, Kentucky Fried Chicken, you know, a lot of those things, they're in trouble. They're, you know, we don't really eat like that anymore. And, you know, they're stuck with it. Businesses that depend on a high volume, and your economic circumstances are not going to give you high volumes and that kind of stuff anymore.
Right. I mean, like Red Lobster is a good case in point of something that you can't really tie it to Biden, but people will throw that into a meme about all things that have been closing under the Biden administration. Red Lobster's filing for Chapter 11. They're going to reorganize, but the ownership decided to make the endless shrimp thing a year-round deal instead of those special things. Well, they got swallowed alive. I mean, there are people out there who will eat, and they eat a lot. Yeah. And so they were losing tons of money there. That is not the president's fault. That's not the workers' fault. This is the management's fault. Who, you know, they've run this chain poorly. The Red Lobster was doing fine before that, but now they run, you know, I mean, I see Hooters is closing down a bunch of restaurants, you know, and stuff like that.
Burger King.
Not that I would miss that, you know, and restaurants are going to go through that. They're looking at that. They look at what works and what doesn't work in this, you know, in this environment and everything like that. So it's a different world and a different economy in that sense of the word. But I've said this, and I know you know this, that, you know, it kind of goes back to your point. These jobs were not meant as long-term jobs.
Right.
The liberal left treats fast food jobs and restaurant jobs as if they are white-collar jobs, as if
they're stopping mobility. They don't want you to get out of it. They want you to stay in their little jail, you know.
Yeah, so it's kind of wild. I will say another anecdote though is that so we went to our favorite Japanese restaurant, for which is apparently no longer going to be our favorite Japanese restaurant here. We've been going to this place for decades. I was going there with my parents. I've been taking my wife out. You know, we go there occasionally. They've had some changes, I think, in management and some other things or something happened. They do have this one waitress who's been working there forever. And she actually splits her time between that and Red Lobster. There was a Red Lobster. She lives near me. The restaurant we go to is in Rockville. The Red Lobster's in Gaithersburg. So it's fine for her.
Red Lobster was right there off Shady Grove, right?
Right. They've closed that one.
Oh, okay.
So she lost, you know, that one's closed. So she drives to Lanham. She drives takes her like an hour to get to Lanham to work in the Red Lobster. And she says the tips are no good. And I'm like, it's like, wow, that's quite, you know, she's dedicated. That's all she's ever done. She's from China, I think, originally. I think she lost her husband, you know, many years ago. And so this is all she does. But she's good at what she does. We love her. We really like seeing her and chatting with her and anything. My wife actually got into a discussion with her about voting for Trump because of his, you know, his little throw out to the Vegas workers about no taxes on tips. You know, and she did everything the right way of coming to this country versus illegal immigrants and all this kind of stuff. My wife gets to be kind of funny and interesting along this line. But you know, she's doing that. If she says the tips are good, that means, you know, there's a possibility that Red Lobster there, that particular restaurant, is maybe having to do a little bit of throwing in some extra money to make sure she's meeting whatever the minimum is, you know, for her to earn, you know, which isn't going to be a whole lot, but you know, it's just the way the system works. And I don't know. I mean, she chose that. She's fine with that. But she's one of the outliers. She reminds me of the waitresses I used to see at Waffle House when I used to travel and stop at a Waffle House. You want to talk about old timey, you know, waitresses? Oh my gosh, I felt like I was being thrown back 50 years in time, you know, with these people.
What you need, honey?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like, you know. In any other place, you start talking hun and stuff like that, somebody's going to say that's sexual harassment, right? Or whatever in today's world. You know, they could say things and do things you cannot do anywhere else in America.
That's right.
So, you know, God bless Waffle House and their employees. Yeah. They are some of the, they're kind of like the true blue American. You know, you want Americana, go to a Waffle House.
You know, front lines in the war on drunk driving.
Yeah, so you know, if you live in
those drunks, keep them off the road.
I almost kind of felt that way a little bit about Montgomery Donuts, you know.
Yeah,
it was kind of because it was open all the time in Rockville, and that's if you go in there early in the morning, you know, different times, you just see a different kind of crowd, and you're like, yeah, I'm glad I'm with friends.
Yeah,
that's right. I mean, the cops would stop by too, which also only, you know, kind of, just kept going. That whole stereotype just would, you know, was just kind of being reinforced with cops and donuts and whatnot. But nevertheless, I think, as a matter of fact, when our central committee does their Back the Blue thing, they bring lots of coffee and donuts to the police station. So they're even the Republicans are reinforcing the stereotype in Montgomery County with the police. And all.
We take all the ones left over from our church. We take them to the firehouse. So, you know, we have donuts and take them down there.
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, let's do something. Let's do something good for our people who are out there and serving and doing these things.
Absolutely.
But anyway, so but you know, but there is that underscoring. I do want to lead into one thing I didn't put on the list here though, which as we got into this, it kind of reminded me. I don't know if you saw these clips or not, but I saw them on, you know, on RNC Research on the Twitter. I don't want to call it X. I really hate calling it X. I don't care if Elon Musk wants to say it's X and then he's got it at x.com. I'm just always going to call it Twitter because this whole X thing just drives me nuts. And, you know, they had a couple of clips there. One about Karine Jean-Pierre trying to explain, you know, she was trying to explain inflation away, kind of a deal. And, you know, as if grocery and gas prices were not higher. And then there was another one with Janet Yellen on another program where they asked her if she'd been to a grocery store, and she's like, every week. Are you shocked by the prices? No. It's like, yeah, these people.
One of those two is a lie. They're not both right.
I mean, I told my wife that, and she was like, no. It's like, it's like, yeah. So yeah, absolutely. So because she never goes to a grocery store if she's saying that, because
that whole interview is like just the utter like disconnect between the people running the country and the people. Just like completely aloof and unaware of what people are going through. It was kind of shocking.
Well, the thing about these people in the Biden administration is that it's they have totally walked away from Bidenomics, right? I mean, they were trying they tried to use that earlier in the campaign when they thought inflation was starting to tick down. Though, as we have said many times, both of us have pointed out that inflation is still out there. The rate of inflation may be slowing down, but the prices are considerably higher than they were before Biden took office. And that is, those are becoming like the new baseline. So it's out there, and we're not going back to 2019, 2020 prices at all. So, we're kind of there and going up. We're not going backwards. We're not going to see disinflation at this stage. So it's just like, now they're like, okay, so we can't talk about Bidenomics in a positive term if the media happens to bring up prices, gas prices, grocery prices. We need to just find a way to change the subject, or to throw up so many weird word salad explanations.
Well, they gaslight you. It's down to 3.2 or whatever. I think it's back to 3.5 now. 3.5 is 2.5 times what it was when Trump left office, right? And this is their down to. It was 9%. We had what, 4 quarters of negative growth in this administration, right? 2 in a row, which was supposed to be the definition of recession when they went in and changed the definition of recession, right? Remember that? And they had some committee that these guys decide when it's a recession, and they of course say no, that the 2 quarters doesn't matter anymore. So they've been lying about economic data. That's probably what's going to happen tomorrow night. He's going to say everything's on the upswing and prices are coming down, and they're not. We all know it.
Yeah, I mean, we see this day in and day out. Even yesterday's lunch I had with my wife. I mean, she was, the lunch was delivered, and she's like, so it's what they call a bento box. So it had, and we did a combination. We did teriyaki beef and tempura. And I've grown up on stuff like this. Having my mother being Japanese, this is kind of part and parcel of things I've eaten for almost all my life virtually. And so she's looking at the shrimp. She's kind of like, "Where's the third shrimp?" She's like, "I'm pretty sure it used to have three of those." The waitress says that they do 3 at shrimp at dinner and 2 at lunch, and she says like. She says, I'm pretty sure it was 3 at lunch and 5 at dinner. And I'm like, yeah, okay. So this is, I called it shrimpflation yesterday. Because we're seeing that. But the other part of it is just that, I don't know if you've eaten many teriyaki beef, whether it's beef or chicken. Mm-hmm. I love teriyaki, I love the sauce and the meat, whether or not it's beef or chicken or whatever, should be tender, right? It should be very tender. And everything like that, the sauces really helps make the deal. And I noticed the last time, and then this time, I thought maybe it's just me, but I thought maybe the meat was getting chewier. And since my wife had the same thing this time, she only ate maybe half of her beef, and so now she wants to try other Japanese restaurants around there, which is fine. But this is also part of it. It's like we began to wonder whether or not they've used a different cut of meat that where now. The price is up, the meat quality is lower. They take out a shrimp, from that, and I don't blame them in a sense, because I'm sure their costs, all this stuff, their costs have gone through the roof in the last few years. But on the other hand, if you don't keep up the quality, at least on the beef side like that, I mean, if you're starting to give this kind of tough, chewy beef, people aren't going to come back, so you'll lose customers. So I think if you're going to raise your prices, keep some of the quality up. I mean, I
Right.
think
Keep it on one side or the other. Either keep the prices low or keep the food good.
Right.
No.
So it's
one of my favorite restaurants, they have this white bean soup that I love, and you can tell they're skimping on the ingredients, right? They're making the soup. It's okay. It's not terrible, but it's not what it was. Yeah. Yeah. That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, hey, well, how fast? That makes me wonder how fast do the chickens at Costco, the rotisserie chickens, which is different than fried, but how fast do they hit? Costco's got a whole operation, right, where they actually have a farm, whatever, they raise chickens and they produce, they move them at such a rapid rate. But I wonder how long it takes them before they're like, okay, boom, 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 because they sell so much of those. It's just, it's phenomenal, how much this world has changed, with things like that. I mean, when you and I were growing up, we didn't have stores like that. We didn't have anything close to these kinds of massive operations that just can churn out stuff like that. And Costco, I mean, at $4.99 a chicken or $1.50 for the hot dog and soda, they can't be touched. They lose money out of it, but they make plenty. They make a lot. They make a lot of money on everything else, even by capping their profit margin. Right, their markup is like 12 to 15% on all the other products, and yet they still rake it in. That's a whole nother. And they pay their employees well, so they're doing it right as far as I'm concerned. They're kind of hitting on all cylinders in those kind of cases. But yeah, there's such a disconnect with the Biden administration and what reality is. And as you mentioned, I mean, we have this debate tomorrow night. We haven't seen Joe, right, since for about a week almost.
Yeah, he's been a cat
doing his debate prep. Shades of the 2020 election, I guess, in terms of where he was ensconced in his basement, whatever.
Yeah, he hid in the basement, and
proved
to be a winning strategy, I guess.
But yeah,
another thing about that is, there's more and more question whether that'll be a winning strategy, right? In the last 2 weeks, right, they've discovered more than enough unclean ballots in Georgia to flip the election. They both opened an investigation yesterday or the day before in Pennsylvania into why they had about 10,000 more ballots counted than they had distributed. That wouldn't seem to be possible, right? You could be off by 5 or 10 in a box, but 10,000 tells you some suspicious stuff happened. And of course, Maricopa County, they have now they had 27 papers of different kinds of paper when there's only one kind of paper that was legal, and it looks like 40% or so of the votes may be compromised. So, it's obvious they stole the 2020 election. There's not even a question anymore. So can they do it again? I don't know. I think the margins are getting to the point where people would say, oh, no, that's not what actually happened. So, I think that's the Bidens, they're starting, you had on there about the fundraising, right? When Trump got convicted, they got about $70 million in the next 3 days. He's done a couple of fundraisers that have been, super huge in terms of money being turned over. And he's now past Biden. He now has more money, what they call cash on hand, than Biden does. So, and Biden is out spending a lot of money on radio ads and stuff that you don't normally buy radio ads this early because people forget the messages. It's still a long way till November, but they're having to spend a lot of money now and shore him up in ways and in places they really didn't expect to. It looks like, Minnesota right now, Trump has the lead. He may have the lead in Virginia too. And there's some other states that they didn't think would be in play that are going to be in play. He's only down 7 in Rhode Island, down 7 in New York, down like 5 or 6 in New Jersey. These are places that Republican candidates, especially like Trump, who are, unapologetically Republican, are, have been 20-point losers in recent years. So, The world's changing. You also have, it looks like Canada, the Liberal Party is about to get wiped out. They're behind in every riding, every district. And, they could end up with, 14 or 15 seats in the whole parliament. I mean, they're really they're getting ready to take a beating that few have ever seen in political history. And they richly deserve it. So, the world is turning to the right again. The world is, they realize that the leftists, they don't stand, they feel, they don't think. And when the consequences come along, those feelings they had don't help you.
Yeah, I think the exception out here is going to wind up probably being, the snap election in Great Britain. I think the Tories are going to take a beating. They mismanaged a lot of things there. And they basically opened the door for the Labour Party to get in. And it's not because the Labour Party is any good. It's just that the Tories have just done a terrible job.
They've been terrible, and they've chosen weak leaders. It's the same thing as the Democrats.
There was something the other day I was reading about somebody was admitting, I think maybe the former Exchequer or somebody or other, that Liz Truss was actually right about some things, right? They threw her under the bus, and yet now they're saying, oh well, actually what she said was actually kind of true. So they've been eating their own and sowing the seeds of their own destruction for this election. Did Sunak have to call a snap election? No, but I guess maybe just go ahead and get the pain over with and start your rebuilding sooner rather than later.
Right. I mean, he's not going to have a lot of power anyway because he's not popular. He doesn't really have any influence.
Yeah, and we have all this stuff. I would really love to see all this discussion about a stolen election in 2020 just finally put to rest and go behind us. I mean, I'd like to move forward with that. I would like the liberals to wake up and say, okay, if we had a way of voter ID and some real good voter ID, we could and put some voter integrity into the system and not get the states to enact these things, then we wouldn't have all these accusations and all this stuff, all the shenanigans going on there. But we do have 50 states with 50 different sets of election laws. Some are better than others. And then you got to get the right officials in there to make sure that they have the integrity to enforce those laws and make sure that nothing funny happens either. Because we've been dealing with just a lot of stupid stuff or tricky stuff for many years, whether or not it's on the national level for the presidential election, or even I still think about that whole Norm Coleman, Al Franken thing. That still bothers me. It's how that turned out, because there was some shady goings on there, and things like that. But you've got, I haven't looked at the map and I haven't counted electoral votes, but it seems to me, just based on cursory, reading glances, that what we're seeing here is that Trump probably will gain. He has enough. He's got a good path to 270. And even if he doesn't pick up some of the states you mentioned, the fact that if he stays close, the down ballot people that are Republicans in the House, in the Senate, and then if they've got senators running, might have some surprises for some people, or the ones that were good solid candidates may be able to flip. I mean, there was a poll that came out for Maryland for Larry Hogan, and now they're showing that also Brooks is up by 11 or 12 points or whatever on Hogan. I don't think
think we should spend a dime on Hogan.
Yeah,
he wins, he loses, whatever. He's not. He hasn't earned it.
Yeah, I know you're not a fan of Hogan.
I was like. If he gets in there, on the first day when they vote to organize the Senate, he's a useful vote, right? He'll vote for the Republican to be majority leader or whatever. But after that, he's going to be a pain in your side the whole time. He's going to try to make his political bones on thwarting Trump. And it's I'm sorry, I'm not on that. If that ends up being also Brooks, she'll be hopefully, I assume, given what's on the board now, a minority senator, and with no power and no seniority and no sway on anything. So, I'm the president of the other party. The House, it looks like increasingly is going to be, stay in Republican hands now. And, I really don't care if she wins.
Yeah.
We got to get rid of the rhinos that hold us back, because you get held responsible. Like, they talk about, oh, we had this bipartisan border deal. Y'all thwarted it because of Trump. And it's like, well, it wasn't a bipartisan border deal. It was you and a couple of rhinos, and it has all the Democrat rhino priorities and none of the actual other party, which is the MAGA Republicans. So go back to the MAGA Republicans, work out a deal. We'll try to get behind it and support it. But if you're just going to ram something down our face and pretend like half the country doesn't exist, then no, you don't get your bill. But we're held responsible for it because of weak, Larry Hogan type Republicans.
So that brings us to a question in my mind now, which is just that what's your opinion about Mitt Romney's successor? Because Curtis won the primary, so that should be a shoe-in for him. He's not an arch conservative. I don't think he's shown that to be in the House. He may be closer to a Romney, type of Senate figure, as far as I can tell. But he may be better. I don't know. I mean, he
doesn't have Trump did not turn him down for a job. So he's not have the bitter chip on his shoulder that Romney does. Not everyone's going to agree with you all the time. He also is going to be sitting there with Mike Lee in a lot of meetings. So, Mike Lee will have a chance to show, where the real heart of the party is.
Yeah, I think that actually may be a good point too, is that Mike Lee might have a chance. It's like, okay, look, you've been in Congress for a few years. And you kind of you understand that. Let me show you what happens in the Senate and what we need to do. And where we need to steer these things versus where Mitt's, steered things and did things and stuff like that. I kind of wondered whether or not Mitt knew when he went in that he was just going to serve the one term or whatever and then get out, so that he was going to burn his bridges, whatever, and not really worry about it in the end. He wasn't planning on being a long-term fixture in there. And he was older when he got elected anyway.
Right.
So we'll see how it happens there. The other thing too now is that we had more primaries. We had the Utah primaries, and Spencer Cox, beat his opponent there. Utah's got that funny system where you can get nominated at the convention, but if you gather signatures, you can get on the primary ballot. And this is what happened with several candidates in Utah. That they didn't win their nomination at the convention, and they got on the ballot, and some of them actually won, by getting on that way. There's a lot of discontent in Utah. There's kind of factions in Utah about kind of the real hardcore conservatives and then the others, and what really does it. And I think Spencer Cox was more popular when he first got elected than he is now. I mean, he still will get reelected. He can beat any any Democrat hands down. But the Republicans have been sniping at him, conservatives have been sniping at him, and they will continue to snipe at him when he wins reelection. But then you have Jamaal Bowman up in New York, in what they said was the most expensive primary ever. And this guy Latimer beats him. And Bowman, he was in trouble, right? I mean, he had pulled a fire alarm right in the halls of Congress, right? And then he'd been very anti-Israel, and Latimer was backed by AIPAC and a lot of pro-Israel lobby. And,
yeah, but he was 21 points ahead of Bowman before AIPAC got involved.
Yeah.
So Bowman wants to blame it, and AOC and the other anti-Semites want to blame it on AIPAC, but he was cooked before AIPAC ever lifted a finger.
Yeah, I think that was it. It's that's kind of a big hit for the squad and the progressives. I mean, Bowman was just such a big mouth, kind of a guy, and
he's just there to cause trouble and throw bombs. And,
yeah, I mean,
he got what those people should get, and I don't know if you saw the video. I guess they had a rally for him in the Bronx last weekend, and AOC warmed up the crowd. She comes out, shaking, dancing all over the stage, running around, pointing her fist, and all this stuff. We got to get fired up. We got to fight. That's like, it was just like odd to see a member of Congress behaving like that, but that's her constituency and her. It makes John Kennedy does that. People are going to say he needs help. but she's a different member of Congress. She's serving a different public, whatever. But they look awful silly, trying to save this anti-Semite who couldn't even win in New York City.
Yeah. So so I guess that's a heavily Democratic area anyway. So
yeah, Etheridge will win, but you've wiped out. You got a read that like you can only go so far with the Jew hate, right?
Yeah.
The actual Jew haters will get turned out.
Yeah, so that's a good thing on that hand. I actually want to go back to the debate real quick too. So, I guess RFK Jr. was unhappy that he didn't make it on the debate stage. Would having RFK Jr. make any difference except just be more of a
it's distraction? A distraction, and he's not earned it. He's crackpot level, 10%, right? 10% of the people who vote are crackpots. Basically, they just want to blow up everything. That's the way it always is, right? And sometimes I'm in that 10%. I hate them all. Like John McCain, when he ran, I couldn't vote for him. I couldn't, this was guy was basically a traitor and just a piece of human trash. There's no way that I'm signing up for that. So, sometimes I'm the one that's in that corner. But, the fact is, this is one where everybody does have a up or down view, right? What you're seeing, like in the polls too, the numbers are getting bigger. Right, Trump's still ahead by 2 or 3 or 4 points. Most of the places that get polled, but instead of it being 43 to 40, it's now 50 to 47, 49, 46. So that means that people are making up their minds. We're really not fighting over a whole lot of voters anymore. So you're up to about, I would say, just looking at what I was looking at this morning, probably about 93, 94% of the people in the country have decided what they're going to do. They're not going to change. So if so all of these things, the debates, the campaign, everything going down the wire, we're fighting over 3 or 4%, and they may not even be a 3 or 4% that matter, right? Because Trump's going to be, much closer in places like New Jersey, Connecticut, Rhode Island, New York, California. He may win Minnesota, right? Which is a far left state. May win New Hampshire. May win Maine. May win all of Maine. So he's, they're in play at all those places. Could outside chance capture Virginia. So if all that happens, you get a Mondalean landslide, right? If it doesn't happen, you should still get a pretty solid Trump victory, and he should still get. He has a good chance to get the popular vote.
Yeah. It'll be kind of interesting to see how that all really works out in the end. And I keep thinking about this debate, just all the rules and stuff like that. And I think the Trump campaign is doing kind of what I expected to do. They kind of get the expectations out there. They kind of been attacking CNN a little bit, right? Just kind of so I can throw in their people's minds that this might not be completely fair because it's Jake Tapper and Dana Bash, and they're controlling things, and so they've been doing that. You saw that thing about with Casey Hunt, how she shut down,
right? Really embarrassing for CNN.
Really that was just that's not a good look in my opinion.
Right. I mean, somebody should have talked to her about that because you look like a mother hen defending a bad chicken. You're the one who did the wrong thing here.
I mean, you can argue with her for the point she's making, but to just basically do what she did, that's not
right. I don't think CNN understands or the left understands how bad a look that is, because that's just like, if you criticize Biden, we're chopping you off. We say we want everybody's objective opinion, but if you venture into that area, no, we're not doing it. We cut you right off. We edit you right out. Right. So, they're basically proving Trump's point. So I think that Trump's strategy on this thing has been, he basically let Biden make the rules, right? So Biden cannot claim the rules don't favor him in any way. So it's 2 hostile moderators. It's in a room with no crowd, which the crowd would respond to Trump, which tells the country, which is an important thing to tell the country, right? There are people, you fill up a room with Americans who are politically interested, right? And half of those people right now are going to be Trumpers, right? Just the way the election is. So, they just can't. That's right. Which, there's no doubt that Tapper made those comments, right? They were on video. So, it's not like we're debating what.
Uh-oh. There's been a freeze. I hope. Oh, there we go.
Back? We back?
Yeah, you're back.
Hello? All
Yep.
right. I thought it had to. You're right. So,
yeah, I know. I should take,
right,
a screenshot when you're at those kind of things. Oh, that's a great look.
I think one thing, I think the rules do not disfavor Trump as much as people think. For one thing, they cut off the mics, right? You at some point, you say your bit, and then they're going to cut off your mic. Okay, Trump was the first debate in 2020. Trump had all the facts, right? He bombarded Biden with facts, but everything Biden said, Trump interrupted him. So America came away saying, he's an interrupter, blowhard guy, and so they don't consider the substance of the remarks. They're like, you're too rude, so he can't be rude now. He has to let Biden talk. And I also think that gives Trump, you give him 2 minutes to think about what Biden said, right? Because Biden's talking for 2 minutes and Trump's got to sit there silently. He's going to come up with some zingers, right? You're going to say something and Trump's going to come back with a one-liner that makes everybody laugh and that it encapsulates the point, and that, then Biden's mic is supposedly off. So Biden can't say anything. Now, it's come out this morning that indeed someone in the control room there for CNN will be able to turn the mics back on. Right? If they say, oh, he's saying something so substantive, I just hit that on button again, right? I bet that on button is going to help Biden a lot more than does Trump, right? They're going to let Biden finish his point, but not Trump, so you will be able to see the unfairness of it all, right? Because, the two things are on trial here. One is, the Biden administration, right? Did they succeed in their 4 years? Did they deserve another 4? And the media, right? Because, Trump has made that part of the story is that, part of the reason that you guys like Biden is because the media has been lying to you.
Yeah, no doubt about that. There's a lot of things that could, be set up against Trump, but Biden, they did a coin flip, and the Biden people chose to take the podium, selection, and giving Trump the last word, which I think actually is kind of a mistake on the Biden people. You're giving Trump the last word. I don't know. Maybe it is good strategic move on the part of the Biden people, because maybe by then Biden will be so lost he won't know what to say anyway. But the final words coming from Trump could just seal the deal, right?
Yeah.
And as you pointed out, because when you said earlier about fighting over 3 or 4%, you talked about this before, that by the time we get to this point of the campaign, a lot of things are already kind of baked in, right? That people are beginning to make up their minds, just like you said today. But you've said this before, and so this debate is not really going to move the needle very much. The media is going to make you believe that this is a big deal. I mean, CNN wants to make a big deal because they need the ratings. They need you to watch it. But really, in essence, you're correct that it's only a handful of people that this is going to really affect, in terms of percentages nationwide. The people who want to vote for Trump, they've already kind of figured that out. People are going to vote for Biden, they're going to figure that out. And then you have the people who may be waffling between, do I vote for Trump, Biden, or RFK Jr., or do I just not vote top of the ticket at all? And that was the other thing too, is that there are several reports about people, who says, they're not voting for either one. They're going to go down ballot, but they're skipping the top of the ticket completely. And more of those type of people are previous Biden voters, and they're going to be, Trump voters. So Biden is getting hurt all the way around, on this. It's going to be a tough slog.
Also, I think there's one state left in which RFK is not hurting Biden more than he's hurting Trump. I think maybe it's in Michigan. He hurts Trump a little worse in Michigan than he does Biden, but all the rest of them, he hurts Biden worse.
Yeah, and my feeling is that when you get to November, voters are when they get when they get to the poll, whether or not it's by mail or whatever, early voting, or they go there on the actual election day, I think they're probably going to make a choice between Biden and Trump, and they're RFK is going to be really an afterthought. I don't think he's going to really wind up with much of anything.
Right.
He's not going to be an influence on this election where people can point to say he swayed the election one way or the other. I don't think that's going to happen.
Right. I don't think he's Ross Perot. He doesn't have that kind of.
No, to me, the longer he stays in the race, the worse he looks.
Yeah. But I mean, there's really no reason for him to quit now either. He's not going to. Yeah. He can't really lose any endorsements or whatever. He is what he is.
Yeah. All right. Other things too. Julian Assange, I guess, he's cut a deal. He's essentially going to go to Australia, I guess. He won't serve any jail time in the U.S. I guess there will be those who think that Assange and WikiLeaks are heroes, but I don't see how you can call this guy a hero. Though in some ways, I guess I would like to see the guy serve real time here, but he has spent some time in prison. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's better just to get rid of him, just not to worry about him, rather than he's been kind of a martyr to me in a way too. So it's like,
my problem is, whatever he said or didn't say, or favored or didn't favor, he's locked up for journalism. He's locked up for stories people didn't want to read, didn't want out there.
Yeah,
and that's never right. These are English-speaking countries. There's supposed to be some respect for press freedom, individual rights. And that wasn't there. So they sent him. So he's agreed to go to really one of the 5 or 6 most fascist countries on earth. So, check what happens to people when their views don't match the state's views in Australia, right? You have cops standing outside your door monitoring whether you leave, watching your phone to see if it walked out of the house so they can come over and arrest you, That's Australia. They expect that. They've accepted that. That's new normal for them. So I don't think that's a great place for him to go. I don't think wherever he goes he will be safe for long. I think that there's too many people with motives dark inside him.
All right, we'll finish just discussing with the SCOTUS. So Supreme Court, we're now at just a few days away from the end of the month. Expecting probably a bunch of decisions to come out by the end of June. They might trickle into July, but the court likes to wrap things up by the end of June. But I think Politico reported there were 14 cases that they had not issued a ruling on, but they did one this morning, which was terrible. Which you can comment on as to how that goes. But there'll be more coming on. We're still waiting on the bigger one on Trump. But what your thoughts on today's ruling then?
Murthy versus Missouri, which would challenge the government's right to tell social media companies to censor on their behalf, right? Which would seem to be, we had ruled before that the government cannot privatize things that it's not allowed to do, right? They can't just, we're not allowed to censor, so we'll go pay someone to do the censoring for us, which is what they were trying to do. They weren't even paying. They were just ordering the censors to do it. The censors, being loyal left-wingers, were happy to help. So the government has said that's okay for the government to tell. I mean, the court has said that's okay that the government that's right.
I like that.
To tell the government to tell social media companies to censor content that's unfavorable to the president. Media Research Center has a thing of almost 7,000 cases of big tech, government ordering big tech to censor conservative content, and big tech doing it, they're censoring content. Almost 700 of those cases are government telling social media companies to remove content solely because it was critical of Biden or his family. Okay, now, so they're basically protecting him from criticism on the internet. Okay, and that is the essence of fascist media policy. And the court says that the ruling was based on standing. And you notice a disturbing little trend when cases that look like they should go forward get rejected on standing. At the center of it is almost always Amy Coney Barrett. She seems real keen on dismissing the maximum amount of matters possible by saying that people don't have standing.
All right. Did you have any issue with the other ruling too before? It was the last week on guns and offenders.
The bump stocks.
Yeah.
Well, the bump stocks. I mean, if Congress wants to make that illegal, then they can, pass a bill through both houses of Congress and send it to the president. I'm sure the current president would be happy to sign it. Probably the next president will be happy to sign it. Trump banned it regulatorily when he was, this is a Trump ban that was overturned. So, the court says that you can't just throw away Second Amendment rights.
Yeah. So here's the thing about this court now is that you really can't tell exactly which way they'll go all the time, right? I mean, the liberals, would say, oh, well, this is just, this is just a right-wing court. Not the case.
Not the case. And if you look at the number of rulings, the number of 6-3 rulings, the 6 conservatives against the 3 liberals is really quite small. Most of them have been 9-0, 8-1, so they're getting on the same page, and the page they're getting on is not predictable. This is 2 rulings that, didn't seem, the conservatives were not necessarily comfortable with. I think the bump stocks, I think that's the right thing. The law, that's not what the law allowed. You want to make the law allow something, then go back and pass a law.
Okay. So let's go ahead. I'll let you just take us out then.
Well, coming up, of course, we have the 1522 case, which is, the thing that was used to put all these J6 people in jail. It was misuse of a law. The court is expected to overturn 1522, which guts a lot of the Washington indictment of Trump. It doesn't look like the documents case in Florida is ever going to come to trial. The prosecutor is having this hard time showing why Trump should be put in prison for something that, Biden and numerous others did worse than Trump. And the other case that's out there is the presidential immunity, which my guess is, and it's just a guess, it will be immunity for acts, on the outward periphery of the presidential duties. And then it'll be remanded to the court to figure out whether the acts Trump took were within the perimeter of his duties. So, that'll go on for so long that Trump will be president and probably, just pardon himself anyway. And Fannie Lillis, I don't think that one is ever going to make it to trial either. And she may not be there if it did, because it looks like they're leaning toward kicking her off the case in Georgia.
So you think that on the Trump immunity, is that going to be 6-3?
That's a good question. I mean, to me, there is some element of presidential immunity. I bet they get at least one leftist vote for that. Like, how this works out, I'm not quite sure, but I think they'll get at least one of the 3. Probably Kagan would be my guess.
All right, and then quickly, Lauren Boebert. She won her prime.
Glorious victory for her. It's a R plus 22 district or something. And a lot of what comes out about her is crap too. So, she brings a lot of trouble on herself, but
yeah, just when I thought I was going to be done with her, I was like,
yeah. I wasn't cheering very hard either way on that one.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. Thanks for dealing with our technical difficulties and sticking with us. We appreciate that. Please, as always, stay safe and stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. And as always, God bless America. And we will see you next week, because I think we'll just hit, July 3rd. So
yeah,
we'll come in right under the 4th. So we'll see you then. All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.